In the Toposa area, where Sudan, Kenya, Uganda and Ethiopia meet, old and new ways collide directly. This film showcases the more traditional practices of the Toposa. They are a rich resource for social anthropologists, but also a spectacular feast for the eyes. Nature too has plenty of contradictions. During the rainy season, the rivers swell to torrents, but only briefly. For most of the year, the weather is dry and extremely hot, with temperatures above 40 degrees Celsius. It's obvious that such a sparse environment can hardly yield anything more than what's necessary to survive. Production of a marketable surplus is near to impossible. It is mainly the animals that ensure the Toposa's survival. Compared to neighboring arid areas, the Toposa land receives slightly more rain, so that some areas are fertile enough to allow for the cultivation of millet. And this old man scares off the birds. The harvested fields. These Toposa build their village near the riverine forest. One particularly notable feature of Toposa villages are the millet granaries on stilts, built that way to safeguard against mice and other vermin. On the right, in the shadow, is Loriang, the village leader, and gives orders. One comment on this film: none of the scenes have been staged. All of it was filmed live with a handheld camera. Here, also the women passionately smoke pipes. The field researcher at work. Each day the millet is freshly ground on the grinding stone. This woman is cracking open nuts from wild fruit, an important additional food source during the dry season. Making braids. This is Napore. Typical for the Toposa, men and women alike, are the two removed incisors. Napore is negotiating the price to build a hut for the social anthropologist. The work is begun immediately. The hut is finished after only a few days, including a place to shower in the front. The village is situated in an idyllic riverine forest. The older men have settled in the shadow of the trees to rest. Friends grooming each other's hair. The fences are almost like sculptural works of art. There is groundwater here and a pump. A little further away, there's a wall. The fight with spear and shield is imitated here, although in real life, Kalashnikovs are long since used. Even the little ones are practicing already. It seemed heaven had smiled on us. We were greeted by Toposa elders and were blessed by them.
Who invite you when we meet like this in such a appeal ceremony? Well, when you come to see us, we are your father. So you must come with the tobacco and alcohol, beer, and we will enjoy and call God to hear our blessing together like this.
Shortly after the rainy season, celebrations are held. Over the next few days, a big celebration will take place in this grove. Our friend Mary had his favorite ox slaughtered because the animal had become old and weak. To compensate for his grief, he celebrates with his generation set mates. The structure of Toposa society is based on hierarchically arranged generation and age sets. This is the day before the celebration. Some have already assembled here. The celebration ornaments are hung on the wardrobe. As always on such occasions, the men fix each other's hair. On the next morning, the events take place at Mary's homestead. Warriors are advancing and pretend to attack the homestead. In front of the gate, they're stopped. Then they storm inside and dance inside the cattle kraal, which is empty during the dry season. The animals are in the cattle camps in the mountains, where there's still enough feed and water. The main elements of this dance are repeated sequences of mock attacks and posturing with shield and spear. The warriors leave the village and we move to the dancing ground. The women there are already dancing, festively adorned. Traditional are the leather skirts, embroidered over and over with beads. Modern are the bras and other accessories. A big audience has assembled. The government attempts to use this as an opportunity and to bring the event under their own control, albeit with little success, as we shall see. The police officers give up. The women dance around the skull of the dead ox, which has been set on a pole. Shoes, possibly even boots, also belong to the festive attire. Here come the young warriors. They've rehearsed for a long time to dance synchronously. Now the most important actors arrive, the Niktamor generation set. Wave after wave, the warriors fall in and pose threateningly in front of the audience. Green rubber boots are very popular at the moment. Being the main actor today, Mary is wearing a huge feathered headdress. This man running by is at least 90 years old. Some of the ostrich feathers and leopard furs have been passed on for generations. Nigtamal have now sat down and are singing their generation set song. Joint prayers and subsequent speeches conclude this day. On the day after the celebration, the men come together to feast on an ox that has been roasted over the open fire. The meat is cooked with the skin. Not removing the skin prevents burning of the meat and keeps it juicy. The meal is served on green branches, which the men set as a table. This is not the end of the celebration, however. The Nigtamal must slaughter an ox for their fathers, the Nimor. That is done in the riverine forest nearby. The table being prepared with green leaves for the later meal. The animal is killed with a single blow of the spear. Then the ox is split using the spear. The meat is cut with the skin on it. Traditionally, Toposa men don't wear clothes, quite reasonably considering temperatures of above 50 degrees Celsius. The women and children of the attendees also receive a share. Part of the meat is taken home and cooked there. In return for dedicating the ox to their Nigmor fathers, the Nigtamal, here to the left of the speaker, receive a blessing from them. The young also have to listen to declamations by the old on appropriate behavior. Underneath a tree in the riverine forest, a blacksmith has set up his workshop. His friends operate the bellows. Like everywhere in old Africa, the bellows are made from clay pots and a leather membrane. The inconspicuous iron rod slowly forms the tip of a spear. We are interviewing a 95-year-old woman in the village of Napuseriet. Like all elder people, she laments that morality and decency disappear. Then she vocalizes a song from her youth. Then the older women dance for us. We call it the dance of the 100-year-olds. The dry season reaches its peak, and one can clearly see the ribs of the cattle showing. This young man with a Kalashnikov on his back thus drives his herd to new grazing grounds. Here come his brothers with the goats and sheep. Here, the family on the move, including donkeys, household equipment, and children. The destination of this migration could, for example, be this area, a dry river at the foot of the mountain. The sandy riverbed still carries groundwater in the dry season. The cattle wait to be watered, like every night. Here comes the boy with the atuba, the water trough. The water holes are dug into the sand, 3 to 4 meters deep or even more. At the neighboring waterhole, people are comfortably walking around naked. The missionaries and the government are far away, and the social anthropologist obviously does not object. The cattle is tended to. Now the people have their share. For the night, the cattle are driven into the kraal. The herders have set up a simple camp here in the riverine forest. There is no drinking yet. The herders vocalize their cattle songs. Common for the tropics, nightfall happens very quickly. On the next morning, as early as dawn, blood is taken from some of the oxen and is then mixed with milk. This is one of the main food sources in the cattle camp. The animals do not suffer from the blood loss. They recover very quickly. In the meantime, the herders are singing praise songs to their favorite oxen. Then, the animals are again driven to the grazing ground. A few days later, 200 kilometers further east in Namasamur, a big celebration is being prepared. Women come together in the morning in the bed of a small river and brew beer. The base ingredient of the beer, the millet, is being ground. In a succession of steps, the millet is cooked, then fermented with yeast, dried and cooked again. The brew ferments in big barrels. The women have obviously tasted the brew and are in good spirits. These women from the neighboring village arrive in closed formation. There is a celebration not only in Namasamur. A few days later, there's also a big celebration in Kabulay. Warriors from the wider area gather. Again, it's a celebration of a generation set of men, much like those in the beginning of this film. Here too, the celebration begins in the village. And again, the women from different settlements partake in the celebration as dance groups. Then the celebration moves to the dancing ground under the trees. This concludes our voyage. At the end, we spend a few quiet moments in the dry riverbed of the Singaita, one of the three main lifelines of the Toposa area. The shadow provided by the riverine forest is quite popular. This man hollows out a trough to water the animals. To his side, the older men sit, rest, and talk.